Welcome Lund loyalists to John Lund Unleashed. Those watching on YouTube, on the John Lund Unleashed and Bay Area Sports Collective channels. Viewers on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and Lundos listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. John Lund Unleashed, brought to you by 𝐟𝐸 Sports Medicine. Got pain? Check out our revolutionary stem cell treatments. And guys, if low T is bringing you down, 𝐟𝐸 Sports Medicine can put you back in the game. Now all juiced up and ready to go, here's Johnny.
All right, it is episode 208. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday edition of the program. Everything must go. Let's go. It is big sale time. 3 o'clock is the trade deadline Pacific time. So if you're watching on the East, math, 6 p.m. on the East, 3 p.m. here Pacific time. Welcome to episode 208. It is John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Maybe you're watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, one of those other places. Thank you for joining us. If you would mosey on over to the YouTube page, that would be outstanding. Make sure that you subscribe, get those alerts on, hit that bell so that you don't miss anything. We put stuff out all through the day. And also hit the like button so that the algorithm will say, not half bad. If you do those things, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching us today. We appreciate it. It is deadline day, like I said. There's a lot to go. There's Robbie Ray right there. If you're going to do it, you might as well just do it right. I don't think half in and half out is the way to go, but we shall see what Buster Posey in his first trade deadline day does. And as Bob Melvin said, and I'll play it for you, they really have no choice. It's not like the guys in the clubhouse could complain at all. They have the worst record in baseball since mid-June. They have the worst record in baseball since the All-Star break, et cetera, et cetera. You know those things. Logan Webb, as you see at the top of the chalkboard there, pitched solid, had 11 strikeouts, just not enough, can't score runs. It's one thing or another with these Giants. Even when Logan Webb gets it done, they just got swept by the Pirates after just getting swept by the Mets, and now the Mets are back, and they have Tyler Rogers now, and they just got another bullpen arm from the Cardinals, so they're solidifying things. The big news today is that the team, because I think all the other wild card slots, as I've told you, are solidified. The Padres are the only one. Padres, Cardinals, Reds, Giants, those are the teams, but the Padres have them right now, and they mortgaged a lot of their future for Mason Miller, and I think the A's did a tremendous job. Now, as I always tell you, I think 9 times out of 10, the team who gets the best player in the trade wins the trade. But the Padres, could you imagine where they'd be right now? I mean, they traded for Juan Soto, and at the time that was great for A.J. Preller, but they gave up guys like James Wood and C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore. I mean, imagine those 3 guys in the Padres right now instead of Washington, where the Padres would be. They'd probably be in first place in the National League West. And so they gave up a big-time prospect, the 3rd best prospect in baseball. He's a shortstop, but we all know how that goes. Marco Luciano was up in the top 10 at one point. This kid's only 18 years old that the A's got, and then they got 3 other pitchers. One's a 26-year-old. So we'll see how it turns out. Mason Miller's a closer. I think you can get closers any old time. So Camilo Doval, he's not Mason Miller. I'm not saying that, but I'd certainly put his name out on the market to see, because even if they could get somewhat what the Padres got for Mason Miller, I'd be up for that. I showed you on the cover of the show today, Robbie Ray. Look, I'd trade Robbie Ray. I get it. He's got another year left on his contract, and it would certainly be nice if he would come back next year, but you can sign pitching, and I'll show you what the free agent market looks like. They all like pitching in San Francisco. They sure as hell don't like hitting here, but they like pitching here. And a couple of guys on the Diamondbacks like Zach Gallen and Woogie have pitched really well against the Giants through the years. So there's a couple of guys like that. You could take a chance. I know you hate the Dodgers on a guy like Dustin May. I mean, there's a number of guys out there that are going to be free agents in the pitching market, and the Giants could go out, and all it takes is money. It's not my money, not your money. Just sell a bunch of garlic fries and get yourself a couple of starters next year. And, hey, Robbie Ray's been great, but you know what? This is the time. You've got the leverage. Teams are desperate. A team like the Cubs, who just got a number 5 starter yesterday from Washington, they need a number 1 starter. There's a couple of teams like that who, going into the playoffs, if they want to do anything, they need a clear number 1. Even the Dodgers, not that the Giants would trade with them, but Ohtani had cramps yesterday. We'll see. Those kind of things scare you. So the Dodgers could use more pitches. There's a bunch of teams that need pitching, the Yankees. So especially high-end pitching, Robbie Ray could fetch you a lot. Ray, Doval. I'm not saying Verlander could get you a lot, but at least Verlander is only on a 1-year deal. Why do you need him now? He pitched well the other day. He's pitched well a couple of times. He's pitched well a handful of times this year, good enough to win. At least you could get a flyer young arm for a guy like Verlander or something like that. So, look, if somebody wants to call on Ryan Walker, who's had a down year, I would listen on that. I'd listen on a lot of guys. There's a base of players that I think that the Giants need to keep. I'm not, Willy Adames started slowly. He's been their hottest hitter over the last couple of months. I'd still keep him. I'm keeping Devers. I'm keeping Chapman. You want to talk to me about Bailey? I'd talk on Bailey. I know he's a great defensive player, but I don't know. You want to talk to me about him because you got a big-time lineup and you can afford to have him in your lineup hitting just about nothing? Yeah, okay. I'd listen. I mean, Yaz isn't going to get you a lot. I know everybody wants to get rid of Yaz, but what's he going to get you? That catch yesterday might have been the catch of the year. So anyway, we got a ton of stuff to get to today in regards to the trade deadline. And again, if I miss something, because I'm going to try to keep my eyes peeled today. But if I miss something, hit me up on that. And look at that this morning, trending already. Robbie Ray, Buster Posey is trending. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So we'll keep an eye out on the trade deadline. That is the number one story. Rodgers to the Mets. We'll get into who else could go by 3 p.m. The Yaz catch, Miller to the Padres. I'll show you what they got. And that's twofold. That's interesting from an A's perspective, even though they're in Sacramento. I know we got some A's fans around and interest. And plus, it's the team that the Giants are chasing. And while I think that long-term, the Padres will probably regret that trade like they did like they should Juan Soto because of those players like Abrams and Wood and Mackenzie Gore, who the Padres could have right now. You look at Mason Miller. I think you can get closers. I like Mason Miller. He's really, really good. And early in the season, the reason he has a 3.76 ERA is because early in the season, he struggled. He's great. Unless the Padres are going to convert him to a starter, which some teams have talked about, and he can be a hammer starter, be like a number 1 or a number 2 starter, I think that's a big overpay. They gave up the third best prospect in baseball, 3 other pretty decent pitching prospects, and that's what the A's need. The A's need pitching. They can hit. They need pitching. And then, you know what? When your team as bad as the A's are, what do you need a closer for anyway? I mean, you need closers are for teams that are going to win games. Closers like whatever, man. You're 30 games under 500. What does a closer matter? Go find a closer at some point. That's always been Billy Bean's philosophy, and it's an A's philosophy, even though he's gone. So anyway, we'll get into that conversation. Young wide receivers. There was one cut that I really liked yesterday from 𝐦𝐻𝐫𝐤 that I'm going to play for you today. We'll get into some Niners stuff. They did sign a veteran wide receiver and a veteran running back, and they're not bad guys. Take a flyer on those guys. I meant to get to the talent under 30, so I'll do that. It's a little misleading when it comes to the 49ers where they're ranked and that whole thing, and you know how much I love lists. And Trey Lance starts tonight, and I got to be honest, I know it's the Hall of Fame game and nobody cares. I'll tell you what, for Trey Lance, this is a big deal tonight. So we'll talk about that because I don't hate Trey. So we'll get into that. A couple of really good caboose stories today that you're going to laugh your ass off on. So we got a ton to get to today. So again, welcome in episode 208, and it is a Thursday edition of the program. Thank you so much for making the time. Wow, we got a bunch of people in the chat room today. If you wonder what's this chat room you speak of? It's on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. So if you come to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, hit up the chat room. We got a bunch of great people in there. You do not have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with people in the chat room. Just have a good time. We have a great community that we are building here, and it is a heck of a lot of fun to hang out. Our good friend Jeff is here, and he was the first one in today, and Jeff's been around for a long time, and it is great to see him. I'm sure he's busy and he's not here every day, but I like seeing Jeff in here, and I've met Jeff before. Great guy. Awesome to see you today. John Joseph, saw you in here early today. Good morning to you. Joji, Konnichiwa, you're here early today. I love it. Scott is here today. Good morning to you, my friend. It is great to see you. Happy Thursday to everybody. We've almost made it. Christopher, it is nice to see you, my friend, one of the original Lund loyalists. I appreciate it. Scott is here. Dom is here. What's up, dude? I got to get with you, Dom, because I need another logo. It's not a bottom of the pint logo. I got something else going on that I need to talk to you about. So I know I have your information, so I'm going to hit you up at some point today if you got any time. The Nutter is here today. You Trippin' is here today. That is outstanding. Good morning, Naomi. It is great to see you as always. Jake, good morning. Lost Crew. We got a lot of the regulars and people popping in. Tommy is good this morning. Good to see you, my friend. It is nice to see you. The 916 and Daniel. What else do we have? Todd Williams. Hello, Todd. It is great to see you. Yeah. That is a great word, by the way. He's a meathead. I like Elliot Ramos, but God, over the last handful of games, it's like, bro, you don't know the infield fly rule? I learned that when I was 8. Seriously, In T-ball, they're like, here's the infield fly rule. This is how it works. You're like, okay, coach. Dude, seriously. It just happened in like a Cubs game the other day, like Cubs Tigers or Cubs Pirates or something. Nico Horner caught somebody. It's like, dude, seriously, stop. What are you doing? Unbelievable. Anyway, he's just had a rough one. That's what I mean. I talked about this yesterday, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's like, it's mental errors, it's physical errors, it's just it's relief pitching, it's starting pitching, it's runners in scoring position, it's just in general not hitting. It's just the whole thing fell apart, man. It just fell apart. And you know what's funny is I saw a video yesterday, and I'll keep doing roll call in just a second. But somebody posted this yesterday. It was brilliant. Do you realize that the Giants, remember when Casey Schmidt hit that grand slam in LA against the Dodgers? There was something like 51-39 or something like that, or 51-20, whatever it was. No, not 51, because they only have 54 wins. 41-29, maybe it was, and they were in first place in the NL West. And Casey Schmidt hits that grand slam, and everybody's doing great. And then they're like 13-27 since that point. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Oh no, we suck again. That's a great call right there. Hey, Bebop. Yeah, that's absolutely great. Was that Rob Schneider? Tacky, good morning to you, my friend. Matt Williams is in Ramos's head. Somebody is. Nathan, good to see you, my friend. Nathan Hyatt, our good friend, is here this morning. JR, also to see you, my friend. So awesome, man. Anyway, Rocket New Era. Hey, yo, good to see you, my friend. Good morning. Good morning. We have our first super. If you want to get your questions, comments, thoughts on the air, 100%. It is always great to hit us with a super and support the show. Break out the pitchforks, trades, fire Melvin. Yeah, I think the lunatic fringe is frustrated because, you know, the thing is that if they didn't show potential, we wouldn't be so pissed off, right, Daniel? I mean, wouldn't be pissed off. If they just were crap all year, it'd be like, okay, I get it. They suck. And we'd be over it. They showed potential. They showed they could play. The bullpen was awesome. The starters were acceptable. They were getting the timely hits. They looked like they were progressing. And it sucks and is frustrated when your team gets worse, you know? And they've had some injuries. I mean, Matt Chapman was out for a while. That wasn't great. But it really hasn't been that, you know? Like usually when you have a swoon, and I call it a swoon, like the Giants have had, you can usually point to something. And I know that everybody's going to point to Devers. That's not it. You know, since Devers came here, yeah, that's a coincidence. It's not Devers' fault. Are you kidding me? It's just they have never figured out first base. They've never figured out second base. Regression in left field, regression in center field, regression to the mean in right field. Regression in the pitching, in the starting pitching, regression big time in the bullpen over the last 2 months. And you're seeing in the bullpen, they're having to use too many guys that weren't the core guys. And now Rogers is gone. And I get that, you know, and they didn't make a bad trade. I'll get into it in just a second because I want to try to keep this in a little bit of an order. But I mean, everybody likes the return that the Giants got, but you never know. Rogers is a guy, by the way, just because we're on the topic of Rogers, was like, when he first came up, it was like, this dude's throwing 70-something miles an hour. There's no way, man. There's just no way. But the art of pitching is not throwing 100 miles an hour and burn it through everybody's bat. It's keeping a batter off balance. That's what it is. Changing speeds, doing all these things. You're different. So you don't see a Rogers every day. You don't see a guy with that kind of release point throwing, 75, 77, 79 miles an hour. It's such a major adjustment. And I always thought that teams that would see him again and again and again, specifically teams in the division, would catch up to him, but they really never did. There were certain times where, yeah, he didn't have good outings. The last couple of weeks, he hasn't been really good. But for the most part, he was a hell of a pitcher for the Giants. And I've had to eat my words many times on him because I'm like, because it was velocity. It was always stuck in your head, velocity, and he just can't bring it. He did. So he was a good Giant for a number of years. Last couple of years, he's been just a hammer, and he could come in at any time. And he just crushed right-handers. I mean, he just was incredible. So it's a loss. Because even when they come back and they say, I've seen the grades, like an A, they got, a pretty decent outfielder that's a former first rounder. They got a, guy that could be, a 4 or a 5 starter. Maybe even you put him in relief. Maybe he could be good. They got a reliever that is at the major league level. It's had a fair amount of success. So they got 3 players for him. I mean, good deal. But Rogers has been really, really solid. And then the Mets went out and got another guy from St. Louis that was their closer. And so all of a sudden, and I told you this, you can transform a bullpen in a day. And that's basically what the Mets did. And so that's what teams are trying to do. They're just trying to transform things. Bullpen's the easiest way to do it. So, and the thing about Ray to me is, and I'll show you the free agents in a minute, you can transform a pitching staff in an offseason, especially if you're pitching in San Francisco. I like Robbie Ray a hell of a lot. That's a great trade. Give it up to Farhan for one. Got rid of Mitch Haniger, which was a terrible signing of his, and Anthony DeSclafani, and he turned him into Robbie Ray because he had to rehab a Tommy John, and he's been awesome. He's been great. But what good is Robbie Ray on this team now? They're not good. They're under 500. There's a clear direction this team needs to go. The farm system is one of the worst in baseball. Clearly, it hasn't helped the major league team when they've needed those issues to be solved at first base, second base, and injury at third base. They just haven't come through. They've needed there's been issues in the pitching staff, which there always are during a season. You're never just going to go through a season and have your 5 starters, boom, 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 boom. You're going to have injuries, and you're going to need guys. And nobody's come up from the minor leagues and filled any of those holes. So it's just a problem. And they clearly don't have depth. And they just said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And look, the Giants aren't as bad as the A's. I'm not saying that, but I give the A's a ton of credit for looking at their roster and saying, A, we suck. B, we've got a lot of great young hitting here. We don't have pitching. And they looked at Mason Miller and they said, how can we do this in one fell swoop? They went to the Padres. A.J. Preller's ultra aggressive. He's done it again and again and again. And in the short term, everybody's excited. He gets Mason Miller. Great. You're the A's. You don't need a closer. You stink. So they got 3 pretty good pitching prospects. In fact, the 26-year-old they got, who throws 99 miles an hour, is probably going to be their closer. He's 26. Put him in there now. Why not? The other 2 pitchers are pretty damn close. And then they got the 3rd best prospect in baseball. He's only 18. So he could either be really, really good, like C.J. Abrams turned into when they traded him to Washington, or he could turn into Marco Luciano. I don't necessarily like trading for guys who are 18. You want to trade for a guy who's on the verge that I know he's already done all the work. Like when the Padres traded for Fernando Tatis Jr. for James Shields. He was on the verge. And it's like, yeah, he's done all the work. I pretty much know. Trading for a 17 or 18-year-old? Ugh. So anyway, that's a double shot there because the Padres, at least in the short term, got better. They got better. And I think they distanced themselves even more from the Giants. And I don't think the Padres are done. They might, because they're a smaller market team, even though they don't often act like it, they don't have the finances. They don't have the finances the Giants do. And they might go out and trade a Dylan Cease. And that's why, they got J.P. Sears, who isn't Dylan Cease. I understand that, but Cease isn't Cease this year. And they could trade Cease and get some of the prospects back that they lost, or they could get an outfielder, which they possibly need. So, look, they're not done. And I think that the Giants signaled yesterday, even though Bob Melvin said after the game, they're still trying to win. He's got to say that. They can't market we're rebuilding. There's people who are still buying tickets. There's a long way to go in this season. You got August and September. Bob Melvin's not going to go, we're waving a white flag. This is a business, so they can't do that. So anyway, give me any of your thoughts today. Which direction do you think the Giants should go? I think they've already signaled where they're going, but how deep would you go? Would you go Robbie Ray? Would you go Camilo Doval? What would you do in terms of trades? How deep would you go in this whole thing? It would not surprise me in the slightest if Verlander was gone. What's the point? It would surprise me if Ray was gone, but hell, I'd do it. Again, I'm not going to just give Robbie Ray away, but how many number 2 starters, how many guys who, he could even pitch game 1 of a playoff series, that's how good Robbie Ray could be. And there's just not a lot of those guys around. And there's some that are on the market, but a lot of them are having bad years. A guy like Zach Gallen, who normally would be, Sandy Alcantara, it normally would be one of those guys, won the Cy in 2022, and he's had a couple of nice starts, but he's still got an ERA around or over 7. How much am I trading? And there's been rumors that the Marlins are still holding out like he is the reigning Cy Young Award winner, which he's not. So, Ray might be a happy medium for a team that says, Mackenzie Gore, for example, is only 26 years old. They're asking a lot. Joe Ryan, Bay Area guy, from the Twins, they're asking a lot. So those teams who want those top end starters, all of a sudden they could look to the Giants and say, Robbie Ray, I think it could be as good as those guys in the playoffs. And then you look at them and they're not going to get that kind of a haul, but they could get a pretty damn good one. And if I'm Buster Posey, I'm looking at my team going, man, I'm just keeping this thing together with bubble gum and duct tape. I'm not going to do that anymore. This is silly. So anyway, give me your thoughts. Another super from our good friend, Tommy Huxley. Last win this homestand was 1896. I saw that. One of the teams, if I'm not wrong, I read this, I can't remember who posted it, but one of the two teams, they went 0-6 in the homestand, and one of the teams that was part of it was the Boston Bean Eaters. That's how long it's been. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, that just tells you where you are. And nobody can bitch and moan. Like, could somebody in that clubhouse stand up and go, I can't believe he didn't give us a chance? It's like, what? You guys did this to yourself. So, all right. At the top, Webb solid, not enough, 11 strikeouts. Rogers to the Mets. Let me show you the deal if you didn't see it. And again, who knows? It's all a bunch of crapshoot when you're talking about a guy, guys at the minor league level. But this is what ESPN says. Drew Gilbert, who was a former first-round pick, has been up and down a little bit. 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢, who he's already the Giants have already seen this guy. He's decent, 3.64 ERA. He's got good splits against righties, so he's going to get righties out. Lefties hit about 100 points better against him, so he's a righties guy. Blake Tidwell is probably the best or the most upside on that in that trade, even though some people might say it's Gilbert. I've looked at Gilbert. I think he might be a fourth outfielder. He might frustrate you like 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢, but I don't know. We'll see. So I don't see 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢 beyond this year because I think Gilbert kind of is that kind of a player. But Tidwell is a guy that could be anywhere from a 3 to a 5 starter, might even be a bullpen guy. So let's see what he say. They gave him an A-. So there you go. Out of the race, blah, blah, blah. Gilbert, 8 prospect. They say he's the headliner, good defender, strong enough arm, offensive profile, lacks a statistical standout, turns 25 in September. So, I mean, I'm not overly excited about that. Tidwell, good stuff, slider, command has wavered. You can fix command, so that's not a big deal. Been a starter, fastball side, blah, 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 blah. And then Buto, who, like I said, he's been in the majors. I've seen him pitch. He's not bad. So there you go. Should be all right. By the way, Austin Slater to the Yankees. Nice. So there you go. So they got an A- for that. Everybody's excited, but the reality is prospects, which 2 of those 3 guys are an absolute crapshoot. So you don't know. And like I said, if you told me years ago that Tyler Rogers could get you an outfielder who was a former first-round pick, maybe a mid-rotation to late rotation starter and a guy who's a decent reliever at the major league level, I'd have said you're crazy. So he was a really solid guy. So we got to give him his credit. So Rogers to the Mets. Who else? I think we've talked about. I want to get your thoughts on that. But like I said, I would listen on anybody. Hell, I'd listen on anybody. But I think, I want to keep Chapman. I want to keep Devers. I'm not, they're not going to add. So Eldridge, I don't have to worry about anything like that. Look, if somebody, this is the time where I think Marco Luciano, I think it's time to move Marco Luciano. If you can get something for Luciano, he's a DH. I mean, you got about 90 of those on your roster right now. So, nobody's going to take Jung-Hoo Lee's contract. Believe me, if they could move Jung-Hoo Lee, that'd be a miracle. I don't see it. I just don't see it long-term. We've seen him for about a season and a half now, and that's not a lot of time. I get it. Nice defensive player, inconsistent hitter. I like the guy, but I just don't see it. I don't see the outstanding trait, especially offensively. Defensively, yeah, he's above average. Offensively, what do? He's a good athlete, but he doesn't run the bases really well. He doesn't steal bases. He doesn't hit for power. He's got some gap to his game, but he pops it up too often. He should be hitting the ball more on a line or on the ground. He should be like a 280 hitter, contact hitter, steal 20 bags, hit 15 home runs. That's what I thought they were getting in this guy, and I just haven't seen it. So I don't love that, but with his contract, I think that's an albatross around his neck. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But pitching wise, Ray, Verlander, I'd look at Duvall, even though I like Duvall. I'd look at Duvall, things like that, And then anybody that's not ARB, like Randy Rodriguez isn't going anywhere. I'm not talking about anybody like that. But the left side of the infield, I'm going to keep intact. Devers isn't going anywhere. I doubt Bailey's going anywhere because they love him. And you're talking about Buster Posey in the position he's in as a former catcher and knowing how valuable that position is. So that's not happening. So anyway, that's where my thoughts are. Give me your thoughts. Yeah, look, if Lee could just be a little bit consistent, they'd like to lead him off. They don't want to hit him, down in the order because it doesn't make sense. But he's got to get on base, man. He's got to be selective. He's got to walk. He's got to play a certain role, and just say, look, you got to be a contact guy. You got to use your speed. You got to be better on the bases. You got to steal some bases. you got to use the tools that you have. And, 15 home runs shouldn't be out of the question for him. The ball is in the air way too much for that guy. He's got to be better. He's got to be better. And for what he's being paid, especially for a team that acts medium market like the Giants do, even though they're big market, that's an albatross contract. And by that, I mean, it hurts them in the future. You know what I mean? Like if the Dodgers make a mistake, if the Yankees make a mistake, if the Mets make a mistake at that level, it hurts them, but it doesn't preclude them from doing more. And 𝐮𝐬 Lee's contract precludes the Giants from doing more sometimes. Like, okay, they're not going to move off that contract. They're not going to, they can't do that. So now he's the center fielder for what? 4 more years after this. Like, oh my God. That's just, that hurts. He's a below average hitter, above average center fielder. But as we continue to look at their lineup, you got that in Bailey. Ramos got off to a great start, So anyway, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I keep saying the same thing over and over and over. I think you're wide open for business today. I think you got to make moves. I think that Robbie Ray, as much as I like him, I can sign pitching. In fact, let me show you one thing just to kind of back that up. Look, that's why I'm not trading hitters. I'm not trading hitters because it's hard to get hitters. And plus I'm not sending that sign. Like just for the sake of conversation, hey, somebody makes a great offer for Willy Adames. I mean, it'd have to be through the roof because I finally got a guy to sign here. I don't want to trade him. Let me show you this really quick. This is, that's the Padres. I don't really care about that. Deadline grades. I had something up here of free agent pitchers. Let me see. I think this is it. Hopefully this is it. Yeah, so this is free agent pitchers. So yeah, whatever, Tucker. But like Dylan Cease, he hasn't had a good year, I get it. Zach Gallen hasn't had a good year, I get it. Framber Valdez. I mean, these are some of the pitchers that are free agents next year. Michael King, who's had some injuries. Brandon Woodruff, who Milwaukee just bounces back from Milwaukee. I mean, there's a number of guys who are free agents. By the way, Devin Williams, how awesome would that be? So you get rid of Duvall. Hi, Devin Williams. He doesn't really fit New York. But I mean, in Milwaukee, I mean, it's just the guy's a hammer. And there's other guys. None of those hitters are going to sign here. But there's other guys, like you could take a flyer on a guy like Dustin May. I know he's a Dodger, but before injuries, I mean, the guy looked like he was really on the fast track, throwing 98, 99 miles an hour. And look, he's just coming back from injuries. And he hasn't been good. But I mean, if you could get him on a 1 or a 2 year deal, one with an option or something, and you just say, okay, you'll be, we'll pencil you in as like a 4. And all of a sudden, and start looking at Logan Webb is going to be Logan Webb. You got to go out and get a number 2 starter, but you just saw the guys, that are out there. I mean, there's a number of guys next year. You could sign a number 2 starter among that group that I just showed you. Landon Roop could be a 3. I don't know what to make of Birdsong, but then you could get into the, 4 or 5 type of starter. Zach Littell was a guy that's a former Giant, did pretty well in Tampa Bay, got traded to the Reds yesterday. Now you can get a number 2 and a number 4 in the offseason. You absolutely can. And I like Robbie Ray. But for Robbie Ray, you can probably get, really nice pitching prospect and maybe another bat prospect. So I think it would be absolutely worth it because you're not going anywhere this year and you already started. And Bob Melvin can say everything you wanted. In fact, let me play that for you. They can say that, hey, we're still in this thing and we're still trying. That's just marketing to me. Here's Bob after the game yesterday.
Still trying to win games here. I mean, we have a pretty deep bullpen. So, and we got a bullpen arm back too. So it hasn't changed in what our expectations of ourselves. But you also understand that, we put the front office in a tough spot too, and they have to look at the future and the now. I think this might be a combination to where we have some depth in the bullpen and, got something back, obviously, they liked.
I get it. You got to say that. You're talking to the fan base. This is a business. You can't just say that, yeah, we're in the tank, so don't come out and buy tickets. I mean, we're not stupid as a fan base. You just traded one of your best relievers, one of your best high leverage guys. It's been for years. And I get it. You got an A- according to ESPN coming back. Way to go. Nice job. Look, your strength of your team for the first 2.5 months of the year was your bullpen. And you just took a major piece out of your bullpen. And Ryan Walker hasn't been the same. So now you look at your really good leverage guys. And Eric Miller is down. So that's another guy that's not in there right now. Your really good high leverage guys are Randy Rodriguez, Duvall most of the time. He can be a roller coaster ride sometimes. And who am I missing? I mean, I'm probably missing somebody, but when Eric Miller gets back, he's another guy. But bullpens you can build every single year, so I'm not worried about that. And they got a decent bullpen arm back, but it's nothing like, wow, that's just a hammer bullpen arm. Because if the Giants loved it, they wouldn't have traded him now, would they? So that's kind of what it is. So that's where we are. Rogers to Mets. Who else? I think anybody outside of a hitter. I think any of your pitching outside of Logan Webb, even Duvall, Randy Rodriguez isn't going anywhere because he's not costing you anything. He's still under ARB. So unless, so is Mason Miller. Unless somebody wants to give me a Padres package for Randy Rodriguez, which is what, the A's just got. In fact, if you didn't see it, let me just show you that real quick too, what Mason Miller got from the Padres. And if you just joined in, that's what happened today. So not that you care about the Padres prospects, but this is, again, twofold. It's the A's, which you might have a little interest in, but it's the Padres who are in the last wild card spot, and I think it's going to be the only open one. So that's the guy at the top, Leo DeVries, who they got. He's a shortstop, and he's the number 3 prospect in baseball, but the big key to me is he's 18. So he's not fully there in 2027. But he's the number 3 prospect in baseball. Then they got their 3rd best prospect and their best pitching prospect. His name's Brandon Nett, and they say that he's close. And again, he's 23, so he could come up this year. They got 13. So they got this guy, Henry Baez. He's supposed to be pretty good. He's close at 22. And this is if I'm, I'm just throwing this out there. They're not trading Randy Rodriguez. But what I'm saying is he's probably as close as they have to like a Mason Miller. And this is, if I'm the Giants, this is what it would take. And I would do this. And this is kid Nunez. He's already 26, but he throws like 99 miles an hour. And if I'm the A's, he's my closer right now. This kid I put right into the closing spot. The Cubs had him for a number of years in their system, about 6 years. They signed him as an international prospect, and then he was a free agent last offseason, and the Padres picked him up, and he's had a great year. So that's probably their closer right now, Nunez. They got this guy that's a good prospect. They got their best pitching prospect right here, and they got the 3rd best prospect in baseball. That's what the A's got for Mason Miller. So, look, I don't want to give up Randy Rodriguez because I think he's a future closer type. That's why I think that Duvall is expendable, because Duvall actually can make money, whereas it's going to be a while until Randy Rodriguez makes money, so I'd keep him. But if somebody wants to give me a Mason Miller package, because you're not going to get a Mason Miller package for Duvall, you might get a Mason Miller package for Rodriguez. I mean, he's that good. He's got that good of stuff. So if somebody wants to call on Randy Rodriguez, even though he's got ARB years left and he's going to be cheap for a long time, for a number of years, but if you want to give me that package, yeah, I think we can talk. I mean, again, it looks like a great package. Maybe it's not going to be. The only way that I think the Padres could possibly win that trade is A, if all those prospects flop, but B, is if maybe they make Mason Miller a starter. Because when you're a bad team, you don't need a closer. You're bad. Like when you're really good, you need one. Yeah, every game matters, but you're the A's. What are they, 30 games under 500, whatever they are? So anyway, that's the Mason Miller trade. That's the biggest one of the day today. And again, I'm trying to, at the same time I'm talking, I'm trying to see if there's anything going on. I know there's tons of rumors going on. Suarez went to the Mariners yesterday. There was a number of trades yesterday. There was a bunch of minor kind of deals. Ryan Finnegan to the Tigers. That's a nice one. He's a nice relief pitcher. So anyway, we'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on as far as pitchers are concerned. And I'd love to get your thoughts. If you're in the chat room at John Lund Unleashed, make sure that give me your thoughts. Yeah, Walker would be an interesting one because he just hasn't been very good. And so you're not going to get what you could have gotten in the past. But I would still say if I was the Giants, I'd get something decent for Walker, at least more than a flyer, because he's been really good in the past. But if I was a team and I'm in, obviously you're making a trade now and you're in the hunt, I sure as hell wouldn't want to hear that as he said earlier this year, that he was having some mental issues. And it's like, you're going to pitch for me in October? Yeah, don't love it. All right, 3 p.m. deadline today. That is what's going on as far as trades are concerned. Say whatever you want about Yaz, right? Say whatever you want about Yaz. Don't know how much longer he's going to be around. They just acquired a guy from the Mets who I think can do what Yaz does, at the very least, in that Rogers trade. But you cannot deny this might be the catch of the year.
A long run for 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽, and did he make the catch? He did!
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me on that? So, there will be no Yaz hate on the show today. None. Absolutely none. You want to trade him? I get it. That's fine. But there will be no Yaz hate. I mean, 9 times out of 10, dude is like, you think I'm jumping into the bullpen? No, I'm not jumping into the bullpen. So probably if there wasn't a net there, I'm not sure that he would have. And I don't even know how much the net helped, but he went over there and he just like, we got to break out of this thing. We cannot get swept by the Pirates. And the dude jumps, like measures it up. You can see, reaches over, pops over the thing, lands, keeps his arm up in the air to show the umpire, like, I got this thing, and kind of gets helped by the net. And then the one guy who wanted the ball is like over there, like trying to help him up. It's like, get away from the guy, man. Yeesh. But I mean, seriously, I saw Chucky Mullins of the Orioles take one away. The kid who plays center for the A's has made, I don't know, 4 or 5 ridiculous catches this year. So, I mean, there's been a lot of them. We're always right up to the minute, like, oh, that's the best, that's the best, that's the best, that's the best. So, I mean, it's a hell of a catch. But 9 times out of 10, dudes are like, sorry, there's no way. I'm not jumping into that. So that was pretty sweet. I got to admit, that was a pretty sweet catch right there. Miller to the Padres, we've talked about a lot. Like I said, the closest thing they have is somebody like Randy Rodriguez, arb years left and all that. You want to give me a Padres package like they got for Mason Miller? I'd do that. But as it is, I think a guy like DOVAL could be on the block. Like I said, I think Ray could be on the block. I think that Verlander's thrown his last pitch for the Giants. That makes a lot of sense. Like if you're a team that's in contention, like Houston, for example, wouldn't you just bring them home? I mean, they need some pitching. Everybody needs pitching. And they're in a dogfight in the AL West. Seattle just got Suarez. Seattle's they got a reliever yesterday. They got Suarez. I mean, they got Josh Naylor. They're really going for it. Like if you're, why not? He's pitched fairly at times. I mean, he's pitched well in probably 30% of his outings. Maybe I'm a little high on that. But again, at 42, he's not going to give you an 8-inning outing. But he, a couple of days ago, he gave you a 5-inning outing. They should have won the game. It wasn't his fault. He's done that on more than a handful of occasions this year. He's had he's had some where it's like 1-2 innings. You're like, my God, he looks like a 42-year-old guy, who had a bad neck problem last year. But, there's been a handful of games where it's like, ain't his fault. So I can see a team saying, why not? Add a vet, good guy to have in the clubhouse, one, and especially teams that he's like Houston that he's been with, and they're in contention. And I could completely see that. He could fit seamlessly back into that clubhouse. Makes a lot of sense. They probably wouldn't have to give up much. You just take a flyer arm for him, probably get an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, something like that. You just get a flyer arm, whatever. And that allows the Giants to, get Birdsong back up here. Maybe he's figured his things out, whatever. It's time for them to do those kind of things. So we'll see. But I would suspect Verlander's probably gone. I doubt they move Ray, but I'd like to see it. I doubt they move DOVAL, but I'd like to see it. Now's the time. So anyway, there is my thoughts on the deadline. Miller to the Padres, Rogers to the Mets, and we talked about Webb having a solid outing to no avail. Do I have anything else baseball-wise down there? I think that is it there. All right, football-wise. I didn't play for this for you yesterday. I had a bunch of stuff that I played from offensive coordinator Klay Kubiak. And I told you, I really like that Klay Kubiak, and they have an offensive coordinator, Kubiak, Shanahan. That's, they're intertwined with the Broncos. They know each other. I know that Klay and Kyle have known each other for a long time. So this is a really nice fit because Kyle trusts him. And it's a lot like, as I told you before, Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel and Kyle go back a long way. Mike leaves to the Dolphins. Not saying that the offense went down at all. They went to a Super Bowl without Mike McDaniel. I'm just simply saying that Kyle can kind of get into these ruts and things and in his own head, and it's only one guy. And I don't know what your thought is, but I don't care what you do for a living. When you have numerous people, you don't want to have too many people. It's not a democracy sometimes. There's somebody's got to make a decision. And Kyle will still call the plays. It's Kyle's offense. I understand that. But Klay Kubiak knows a lot. And it's nice to just have a checks and balances system where somebody says, Kyle, I get it, but how about this? Because they went last year from one of the best teams in the red zone to one of the worst teams in the red zone. And right away, you're going to say, Christian McCaffrey, 100% Christian McCaffrey. I get it. And that's part of it. But he became predictable at times. And sometimes you just need a checks and balances, a guy who says, hey, Kyle, you're doing this and we're doing that. And it's kind of, why don't we try this or this? And it's just not that Kyle's not great. It's just we all need that sometimes. Somebody to just kind of stand back and have a macro view of something and look at it and say, maybe we should try this or this. And you go, you know what? That's good. You just want to have that. And it has to be somebody Kyle can trust. And so like Mike McDaniel, he's known the Kubiaks for a long time, knows Clay Kubiak, trusts Clay Kubiak. And he was really an impressive guy at the podium. I guess this was 2 days ago because they were off yesterday. So I played a lot of it yesterday. But one thing I didn't play was him talking about the young wide receivers, because we're all sitting there going, okay, Ayuk's out for a while. Robinson's going to miss the first couple games. He's looked really good in camp. We forget about Russell Gage, who's a veteran. We forget about 𝐤𝐨𝐫𝐞𝐫, who's a veteran. I mean, there's some guys around. 𝐾𝐭 is a guy that, hopefully in a couple of weeks, he's going to be back. I'll tell you about some guys they signed in a minute. But we're all assuming, like, well, who's that wide receiver that's going to step forward? And look, I'm high on Jordan Watkins. I liked what he did in OTAs. I was down there the first couple of days of camp. I was unimpressed. But then they got pads on, man, and he's just got a lot of quickness. Caught that deep ball the other day, and he's starting to really emerge. So here's Clay Kubiak talking about the young wide receivers when asked if any had emerged so far in camp.
I think it's definitely too early to tell about who's going to be ready for week one. I think at that position group we probably have more competition than we've had in the past couple of years, just based on kind of who's been out there. With BA being out with his injury, with some of the young guys we have with Jordan, with Jake, who also hasn't been out there, but it's given a lot of guys opportunities to show what they're made of. Guys we haven't seen a lot of. But as far as, saying who's ready for week one, who's going to be out there, it's definitely too early to tell.
All right, so that's, because everybody kind of gets excited about things, and what coaches do is they kind of pump the brakes on some guys. But like I said, I think Watkins has been really good. There's been a couple of other young guys. Everyone really gets excited for young guys because you just don't know. And I think what's going to happen here is if they continue with the injuries the way that they've been. And again, my big concern right now, it's not Ricky Pearsall. It's not even Brandon Ayuk, because he's on track to come back. And I think that it's going to be a pup list thing where he's out the first 4 games. But where I think this thing is going is, I don't know that 𝐾𝐭 is going to be ready. And I don't even know if he's any good, even though he's had good OTAs. I think this thing is going to come down to, you're going to see Pearsall on one. And then I don't know from there. If Robinson misses the first 2 games because of a DUI, this thing could be Russell Gage and Isaiah Hodgins. They signed a couple of guys today. Let me just pop this up for you. And it doesn't overly excite me, but I understand why they did what they did. Here's who they signed yesterday. Andy Isabella, if you remember, is a guy at a UMass, and the Cardinals actually drafted him first. And he's bounced around the league a little bit. And he's got really good speed. He's undersized, could play in the slot, but it's never just really worked for him. And a lot of people liked him when he came out. Like I said, I think it was a 2nd-round pick, and it just hasn't worked. And so they're bringing him in. And then Amir Abdullah has had a little bit of success in this league. Detroit, the Raiders. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's more than a camp body, because I see the top 3 running backs. Obviously, it's McCaffrey, who's 100% healthy, I'm telling you. And then it's Garendo easily. And then Jordan James, I've sang his praises since the minute I saw him in the first day of camp. I mean, he just darts through a hole so quickly, and he's so low to the ground and so small. I don't even know if he's 5'9", but he's not small. He's short, and he's got big legs. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's not afraid of the moment. Big-time program at Oregon. I like him as a 3rd back. He's just one of those guys who looks like the Niners did it again and found themselves a good running back, and they've got really good depth. So Abdul is a guy that might be a camp body. I'm not so sure, but I do think that their top 3 running backs are set. So it just might be that, they want to kind of save McCaffrey from himself, and they're just not going to use him very much. So they bring in another back, a veteran back who can run some of the offense, block, not get Brock killed or something if he has to stay in there, that kind of stuff. So we'll see if either of those guys fit what the 49ers are going to do. But especially at wide receiver, they're going to have to possibly continue to bring in veterans and see if somebody can stick, because week 1 is looking ugly. I mean, I see Pearsall, and then I don't know, because we know where Ayuk is. We know Robinson's going to miss the first couple of games. This Jennings heel thing, man, or excuse me, not heel thing, calf, which again, calf could lead to Achilles, but I'm not going to go there yet. But the calf thing is a concern. There's just no other way to put it. And he's not out practicing, and the more he misses, the more you get concerned. So, we thought, well, at least it's going to be Jennings. Well, is he going to hold out? No, he's not going to hold out. All right, they're trying to work on a deal. Now he's not there because of a calf injury that he had in OTAs. So all of a sudden, the only guy, and he can get hurt too, is Ricky Pearsall. And they've got veterans that we forget about, and everyone wants to get excited about the rookies. If Watkins keeps this up, maybe he can be in the mix. But right now, as you just heard from Clay Kubiak, that's not quite the case. So the young wide receivers, the Niners sign a running back and a wide receiver. Probably people saw this and talked about it a couple of days ago, and we had so much stuff going on that I didn't pop this up, but they ranked the NFL teams based on 25 and under talent. So graduated players, Brock Purdy no longer, Pooney no longer, Jair Brown no longer. I'm not a big Jair Brown fan, but you know that. And then you start looking at, this is basically the 24 and 25 draft, right? So Mustafa's hurt. D. Winters, I think, has looked good in camp, so I think he's got an opportunity. Renardo Green, I think, is going to take another step. The hamstring doesn't help. And Ricky Pearsall's got to stay healthy. And then you go to this year's guys. Mikael Williams is only 20. Alfred Collins is a guy. I really like C.J. West, especially if he's going to be on a package of the rush package and be in that turbo package with guys like Josh Huff on the outside, and you're going to bring in Mikael Williams, and you're going to have Bosa. I mean, I think that could be a really nasty package. And I really like Upton Stout. But the reason why they're 30th is it's unproven talent. I like their young talent. Now, would I put it in the top 10? No, I would not. But I think they're being put 30th out of 32 teams because it's a lot of unproven talent. And we've talked about this. Offensively, they're fine. Offensively, they got plenty of talent. I think this is a team that's going to score upper 20s, low 30s. They're going to be like a top 5 scoring offense. Defensively, Robert Saleh has already told you this. It's going to take a minute. And what we're talking about in under 25, look at the names on that list outside of Ricky Pearsall. He's the only offensive guy. Mustafa, injured. Winters has got to come through. Green's got to come through. I'm going to add Upton Stout to that. Defensive line-wise, West has got to come through. Collins has got to come through. Mikael Williams has got to come through. At some point, Nick Martin is going to be on the field. Right now, he's not in the mix as far as the top 3 linebackers are concerned, but that can change. But D. Winters is a part of that at just 24. So, look, there's a lot of unproven talent on this team. It doesn't mean that they are devoid of young talent, which is what people will see when they read that ESPN piece. They'll go, well, the Niners, their time is gone. They don't have enough talent to contend. Yeah, they do. They have young talent. It's unproven talent. Which way is it going to go? They're going to score points. Purdy, Kittle, Trent Williams, McCaffrey, Ayuk will be back at some point. Yeah, the wide receiver core right now, because of the injuries, namely because of Jennings now, because Jennings, Pearsall, and a third, either like a Russell Gage or a Watkins could possibly come through, or somebody they can pick up off the wire, or somebody after cuts are made, or whatever the case may be, they could pick a third receiver up. And with Kittle and McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, they'd be fine. But now, when you're looking at Jennings possibly being out, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem, man. There's no doubt about it. So there you go. Thank you, Tacky. See, that's you bring up Bader's name, and I'm not a huge Bader fan, but the thing about Harrison Bader is, like, when he was with the Cardinals, he wasn't bad, and he's kind of progressively gotten a little bit worse. But that's where I see 𝐿 Lee, and I thought, 𝐿 Lee at worst was just going to be a really good defender and kind of a soft bat maybe, but I thought the bat was going to work. And that's what I'm starting to see with 𝐿 Lee, is like a Harrison Bader type, where Harrison Bader's a really good defender, but he doesn't give you much of a stick. And I'm starting to look at 𝐿 Lee going, is that what he's going to be? Like, is that his ceiling? And it makes me nervous. Like, I don't mind him. Like, if I'm the Phillies, I got a hammer of a lineup. And if I have to put Bader in there, because of his defense to improve my defense, even though Marsh isn't a bad center fielder, but I mean, if I get Bader in there, and let's say it's a late inning thing, and I have, I put Bader in center, and maybe I move, I move Marsh over, and, I get my best defensive outfielder out there. I'm okay with that. But Lee needs to be a player that can hit for the Giants, and he's just not doing that. And so I'm looking at center field for the Giants and going, he's kind of a Harrison Bader type. I don't mind him. I don't mind him if he's on the right team, because he's not a great stick. So anyway, all right. So thanks for keeping me up to date on everything, because like I said, I'm trying to do 2 things at once, walk and chew gum at the same time, and try to stay up on these things. And again, the biggest trade this morning, if you missed it, Mason Miller goes to the Padres, which fortifies the Padres against the Giants. Mason Miller was a guy that a lot of people thought he's not going to move. I think it's a brilliant move by the A's. They get the 3rd best prospect in baseball, even though he's only 18. 3 pitching prospects, including the Padres' best pitching prospect, a really good pitching prospect who is their 13th, who's ready to be in the majors, and a guy who, though he's 26 years old, has really found himself since the Padres picked him up from the Cubs in the offseason. He's only 26, and he throws 99. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the closer for the A's whenever he gets there. So that's the kind of package. If you're going to move Mason Miller, who's an ARB guy who's got a couple of years left until you even have to pay him, that's a great move by the A's. Bad teams don't need, teams as bad as the A's don't need a closer. So that's a nice move. That's a nice move by the A's, I think. So that was the biggest move today. And we'll keep you up to date on everything. And if there's a huge move, make sure that you have your alerts on at John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, because we will make sure that we keep you up to date on that. So let me go to the chat, make sure that everybody's, again, I just hit up some quick Niners stuff, and then they'll have practice today, and I'll keep you up to date later today. We'll keep you up to date on anything new because the Niners are back on the field today. But any other thoughts on the trade deadline today? How deep would you go if you were the Giants? Like I said, everything must go. If you're not Devers, Adames, Chapman, Webb, who else? Something like that. I'd be open to just about anybody. I don't want to trade Randy Rodriguez, but if you want to give me the Mason Miller package that the Padres just gave up to the A's, I'd certainly consider it. I'll tell you that. We have our daily Bob Melvin hate. I understand that. Oh man, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, that was me. That's what I want him to do. That's exactly right, Tacky. That's what I said. I said, look, too many times I can see him getting under the ball. And Ichiro could do that sometimes. If Ichiro wanted to hit, I don't know if you ever saw, and this is stuff of legend, but I had seen it before. In batting practice, Ichiro could lift the ball out of the ballpark quite easily, but he didn't want to do that. He was like, okay, whether he was leading off or later in his career hitting third, now he's like, I'm just going to line the ball. I'm going to line the ball opposite way. I'm going to hit it all over the ballpark, spray it all over the ballpark. And I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, because it's not. But that's who Jung-Hoo Lee needs to be. And if it was easy to do, then there'd be a bunch of Ichiros just spraying the ball all over the field. I get that. Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, those kind of guys who are contact guys who are just spraying line drives all over the place. If it was easy to do, then yeah, everybody would be doing it. I get it. But if I'm the Giants, that's what I'm working with him in the offseason. Look, you don't have the kind of power to hit the ball out of this ballpark consistently. If you hit 15, great. But you've got to be a better base runner. You've got to have better instincts on the bases, because you're too fast to not be a better base runner first. You got to get up to like 20 stolen bases. We got to get you, 15 home runs should be about it. And then everything else, you're lining balls, oppo, you're hitting the ball on the ground, you're bunting for some hits, doing those kind of things. You're using your athleticism. You've got to be a fire starter, and like you said, he doesn't walk a hell of a lot. So he's not a great leadoff guy, but I think those things can be taught. You got to be selective. You got to get on base. You got to start things, man. That's why, like, if I'm the Giants, the one guy, honestly, not that I want them to buy, but the one guy that I would, if I could get in on it, because, remember, the trade deadline's for everybody, but I've heard that the price on this guy is sky high, is the Bay Area's own Stephen Kwan. Like, Kwan, to me, great defender. You could stick him in right, because you're not going to stick – he plays left for Cleveland, but I'd stick him in right. He can play right easily in this ballpark, because you're not putting Ramos there. So Kwan would be the type of player that, like, he leads off the game. He gets on. He's a contact guy. He's a major pain in the ass. He's just one of those guys that always seems to be up, gets the key hit, makes the key play. Great defensive guy, good clubhouse guy, just really solid, great contact. Like that. If I was going to add somebody, and it wouldn't even be for this year, it would just be like, this is who I'm adding, because he's really good. I'd call Cleveland. I'm going to trade everybody, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Maybe with some of the prospects I got back, I would get like a Stephen Kwan. Like, could you imagine him being in this lineup at the top of the lineup? Because that's what I thought Jung-Hoo Lee could be. He's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark or anything like that. He's just hitting line drives. He's getting on base. He's being a major pain. He's stealing some bases. He's just a very good, fundamentally sound baseball player who just makes all the right plays. Who the hell does that on the Giants? Nobody. Thanks, Jim Harbaugh. Nobody does that. They do the opposite. They make mental and physical errors constantly, especially during this losing streak. I love that guy. I think he would be the perfect guy, and he'd love to come home. So, if I'm Buster, like, sell, I use some of these guys to get a guy like that. Because, like I said, I can get pitching in the offseason. I can sign pitching. Give me some prospects for the guys that I'm going to trade. Give me that Robbie Ray prospect, this. And I turn around to Cleveland, and I get somebody like that. I get Kwan in my outfield. Now, he plays right. Well, I guess Lee's still in center. And I guess Ramos is still in left. But, now I have a leadoff hitter. Now I have somebody that's going to, be a pain and be a fundamentally sound player. That would be great. Because you don't have to, like when you sell, you can still buy and it can be for the future. Like Devers is a guy that, hey, you bought and it didn't work out for you this year, but hell, you have Rafael Devers. That's good. That's going to be a good long-term thing. Like for everybody that's bitching and moaning that, oh, he's the problem. Like I didn't look this morning, but as of yesterday, he was on pace to knock in 110 runs. Yeah, that was what a terrible trade that was. Giants have guys who knock in 110 runs every year. Like this dude's on pace for 110 RBI. So I think it's okay. Anyway, I didn't mean to make that. Yeah, look, I like Yaz, man. I do. I like Yaz, man. I do. I like him as a player. I like him as a person. I just think, it would be really great if he was a fourth outfielder. And, he could he comes in and if you had a 𝐾𝐭, for example, he comes in and, he plays right, 𝐾𝐭 goes to left and Lee's in center, late innings for your outfield. And you're pretty good defensively, right? I mean, Yaz is a great right fielder in this park. We just saw it. But, 𝐾𝐭's not going to be a drop-off if you put him in right. I know he's a left fielder, but he's a great defender. And he would just, there's your top of the order. If you put him hitting first, and if Lee could, use an off season of, just getting in the cage and doing what the Giants wanted him to do, and he could hit 2. And now think of that lineup from there. Devers, Adames, Chapman. Now you're cooking with some gas because they need somebody at the top of that order that is going to contact, get on base, be a pain, divide the attention of the pitcher like that, make the right fundamental plays. That's what he does, man. He's a really nice player. Anyway, that's a nice little tangent. All right. Any other thoughts? And like I said, keep those alerts on today because I am going to, if anything happens, I will pop on. Yeah, I love the guy. I really do. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here watching a bunch of Cleveland games, but every time I do, that dude is he's doing something to help his team win. And you're just like, God, that guy is a major pain. Like just one of those guys, Anyway, I like him. All right. There you go. I've made that abundantly clear. All right. Let's see, a couple other things that we got to hit before we hit a nice, sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol. That guy's starting tonight for the Chargers on Thursday night versus the Lions in the Hall of Fame game. I don't dislike Trey. What's ironic about this, if you'd remember, when Trey was a rookie, I was down at camp, and Jimmy obviously was still here, and we're watching Trey, and we're like, this dude's pretty good. He's putting the ball where it's supposed to be. He's moving out of the pocket. It's that's why training camp is dangerous. He's looking good. And there was even whispers down there like, this good dude could start. Like this dude, I'm telling you, early in his career, first year, first camp, everybody's like, this guy could start. He's looking good. He's moving in the pocket. He wasn't on point, completely with his accuracy, but it wasn't bad. And he was making plays and he was confident and he was running the offense and all. We're like, this guy's not bad. And there were even rumors like, So then they go down and they do joint practices with the Chargers. And I'm telling you, just because he knew what the Niners, this is why, like I said, it's dangerous in camp because a lot of times what the defense is going to do. They're kind of working on some things and Trey made some plays. And remember, he's playing with the second team. He's not playing with the first team. So he's not going ones versus ones. It's twos. He's playing against twos and threes. And so, it was maybe a little bit easier to look good. He goes down there and they're playing the Chargers. And that week they had joint practices and he was going against the Chargers ones. And it looked like it was in a completely different language. It was like, what is he doing? He looked like Nuke Lelouch. They're flying all over the place, couldn't hit anybody, looked confused, just lost his confidence. And from that point forward, Trey Lance was never the same. He never regained his confidence. Of course, he had the injuries and all those kind of things, but it started from his first camp, like this dude looks really good, to going down to a week of camp against the Chargers in which he didn't have a clue. And it kind of just went downhill from there. And it was we're looking at each other like, is this the same guy? And so the irony of tonight's game is there's Trey Lance right there in those beautiful Charger uniforms. And hopefully, I don't know if they're going to use that for a football, that green thing, but hopefully, I hope Trey does great. I hope he does really, really well. I don't hold out much hope because I watched him a bit with the Cowboys. And I think was it the last game of the year last year? And it was like, oh my God. I mean, it's just his accuracy issues. And I thought you could correct that to a certain point. And with him, it just hasn't happened. And I remember because I covered Josh Allen for a couple of games in college. I was a sideline reporter. When I was in Salt Lake City, I worked for a radio station and I did a daily show and I worked for the Utah Jazz and all that kind of stuff. But on the weekends, I worked for ESPN too. And I did, regional games. And I happened to do a game I had to go up to Laramie, Wyoming, of all places. And the wind, you've never been in a wind like this. It was unbelievable at halftime. And this was like an October game. The sun was out and everything. It wasn't like I was freezing. I had to go into the booth for like 20 minutes. I thought my ears were going to fall off. I mean, it was just, and so he's cutting through the wind, but he was so inaccurate. And I just thought, there's no way this Josh Allen guy. And then when Buffalo took him 7th overall, I'm like, this is insanity. Like, how the hell are the Buffalo Bills taking Josh Allen with the 7th overall pick in the draft? I saw his game. I think he was playing like Boise State or something. And they were pretty good at the time, but I think he was like 11 for 27. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the wind played a major factor, no doubt. But I'm like, this guy, no way. You can't teach accuracy. And then they did. And so I thought, well, Trey's not very accurate, but I guess they can teach it. I saw him to teach it to Josh Allen, and it just never came around. So bottom line is, look, I'd love to see the guy play well tonight. I would. It was a horrible pick. They lost a lot of, I know the history of it and all that kind of stuff. And if they wouldn't have picked him and, Mac Jones is here now and blah, 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 blah. But I'd like to see the kid succeed because he's a nice kid. But he was in over his head, hardly played at North Dakota State, played 7-on-7 high school football. He just never learned to play the position. And that's a major problem in the NFL. There's just, where the hell do you learn? You don't, you can't. They can't, there's no minor leagues now. Great. You can throw it through a wall. You can run. You can do this, that, and the other. Can you do what Brock can do? Can you decipher it quick? Because that's what the position comes down to. And I was watching a clip from Tom Brady the other day, and it was so brilliant, whether you like Brady or not. And Brady said, you know what? He goes, it was one of the most brilliant things. Let me take Trey off the screen there. He goes, it was one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard a quarterback say, a former quarterback. And he was, might have been on Rich Eisen or something. And he said, if I didn't like the look that I got from a defense, he goes, here's the advantage of being the quarterback. I didn't have to snap the ball. He goes, if we had a play call and I studied so much film, I knew what the defense was going to do. So I go up to the line and I see what I've got called is not going to work against this defense. I turn, I've got like 3 plays. I turn, I change the call to something I think that's going to work, to a run, to a different pass play, to whatever. And guess what? I would know if they were going to blitz. I would know where they were blitzing from. I knew what, what coverage they were going to be in. So all this different, like, he knew everything. He knew everything. And you know what? Probably 8 times out of 10, he was right. They could fool him sometimes, but Brady, most of the time, maybe 8 out of 10 is too much. Maybe 7 out of 10. But he knew before the ball was snapped what was going to happen. And he would stand there and look at the defense, and he's like, I don't have to snap the ball. I got 2 other plays I can go to. And if none of them worked, he would just basically go to a run play and say, okay, I'll get 2 yards here and we'll live to fight another day. Even if it was like a 3rd down, we'll live to fight another day. The worst thing that can happen right now is that I run a dumb play. I turn the ball over. Well, and nobody thinks like that. And he was like, I don't have to snap. I don't have to run this play. Well, Trey Lance didn't know that because he hadn't played. And so here he is just blind, and the ball is snapped. And now he has to decipher. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and all the greats and Drew Brees, they already deciphered it. So then when the ball was snapped, and we always talk about you have like 2.2 seconds to decide what you're going to do, right? 300-pound men are trying to rip your face off. You got 4 or 5 guys out on a route. You got to read every one of them where they're going to go. That guy's got outside leverage, inside leverage. Can you fit it there? Can you, you got to go through these reads. 1, 2, 3, 4. As fast as you in 2 seconds, like 2.2 seconds. Well, you know what really helps? Knowing what the defense is going to do before the ball is snapped. And so Brock can do that. Brady can do that. Guys can do it. Trey Lance and some of these other guys, Justin Fields, they don't know. And so then they snap the ball, and that's when they start deciphering. You don't have time to do that. And so all these people sit there and they're like, they love the arm of the quarterback, and they love the athleticism of the quarterback, and they love all these different physical traits that everybody falls in love with, but they don't realize what's here. And nobody gives credit to that. At least fans don't. Like, he's 6'4", 220. He can throw it through a brick wall. Awesome. When he goes up to the line, like Brady says, does he know what the defense is going to do? Can he get out of that play and get to a new one? Alex Smith was awesome at that. Just keep me out of the bad play. You don't always have to make the play over the top for 80 yards, but just don't turn it over and don't get me the 8-yard loss. Okay. Don't do that. Now, even the Bradys and the best of them can do that, but the guys who are the best quarterbacks in the history of the game knew exactly what was going to happen because they had worked that hard on it. And that's what it is. And so a guy like Trey Lance, what did he have to go on? He had North Dakota State. He looked over to the sidelines. They'd hold up some picture. He'd run a play. He didn't change plays. He didn't have 3 plays to go on. And if everything broke down, guess what Trey Lance did? He ran, and he was the best athlete on the field. So now you come into this situation, and it's like, I've never learned to play this position, right? And it's like, good, you're thrown in there right now. You got one opportunity. You got hurt. Here comes the backup. You're out. Oh, Brock Purdy played really good. Sorry, you're in Dallas. Oh, they got Dak. Sorry. Now you're in, you're the Chargers. Oh, yeah, you're going to unseat Justin Herbert. I mean, there's no way. So anyway, I didn't mean to go on such a long tangent about Trey Lance tonight, but that is your football. And everybody's freaking like, real football tonight. It's like, yeah. I mean, I like it. It's cool, but it's not real. Sorry to disappoint. All right. Before I get to the sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistol, and it's a good one. I have one hilarious one and one that's fairly comical, but one is a, I'm not going to call it a top 10-er. Might be a top 25, though. Might be a top 25 of all time. Might be a top 25 of all time. Don't want to oversell it, but Joji, I wouldn't disagree with you. Trading Buckner and getting Kinlaw. Yeah. I mean, they just thought this is going to be really easy. We're going to trade Buckner and get Kinlaw. It's like, well. Hey, Carlos. Good luck with Trey Lance. If you can succeed in the shenanigans, the cameras and yeah, no, believe me, man. I wish there was a system so that these guys could do it, could realize it, because then, you work with a guy like NFL Europe used to be or whatever. Then you're working with a guy and saying, look, this is the defense. Then the mental side of the game is coming around. It's too late for him, I think, because who's going to give him the opportunity? If you're a first round pick, they're going to give you an opportunity. But after that, like, he's not a first round pick at Dallas. He's not a first round pick at the Chargers. How's he going to figure it out? It's going to be hard, man. Good morning, Antonio. It's good to see you. What up? The Gigantes are like a slow rolling train wreck right now. I get it. It's a marathon, not a sprint, but come on, guys, stay in the race. I think it might be too late, but we'll see. I mean, look, it doesn't mean because you get Mason Miller that you're going to be a better team. Just ask the Giants. June 15th, they got Devers, and we all went. Remember, June 15th, they got Devers, and I believe they were a half game behind the Dodgers, and we were all like, oh, my God, they could win the division. I might have said that. I'm not going to admit it, but I might have said something to that effect, and it was like, what the what? So, some of these guys help, some don't. It's crazy, man. Let's see here. What else do we got? Anything? All right, let's do this. You're going to love this. By the way, before I get to the sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistol, and don't go anywhere, by the way, John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Please make sure before you leave today that you are subscribed. Get those alerts on, because it is trade deadline day, and if anything happens, like Mason Miller being traded to the Padres today from the A's, but they got a big-time haul back, then we will get those alerts out. We'll do a quick hitter on it, and so forth and so on. So tomorrow, I told you that we were going to have a great Friday interview, and I think you are going to be highly entertained. I taped it on, what was it, Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day it was, and Tuesday, I think, because today's Thursday. So I taped it on Tuesday, and we'll run it tomorrow on the show, and I'll actually put out some teasers later today, which is another reason to keep those alerts on. So it's going to be great. I don't want to hear that the Dodgers are in on Quan. If they get him, I'm going to be so pissed. I'm not going to be pissed at the Dodgers. It's the system. Like, everybody gets pissed at the Dodgers. It's the system, man. It is what it is. Like, they just want to win more than anybody else. I know they have the money and all that kind of stuff, but to me, when you compare apples to apples, it's how much of your payroll is, how much of your income, of your baseball related income, is dedicated to payroll. And the Dodgers, it's something like 71%. It's like the highest in baseball. They're like, yeah, we have the most revenue. We get it, but they just put it into payroll. And as much as you hate the Dodgers, it's like, damn, they want to win. And so I would be pissed. Like, that's going to piss me off if that happens, because that's the perfect guy for the Giants. And I'm not saying that it's to win this year. It's just like, let's go, Anyway, all right, let's do this because I told you that this was going to be an outstanding caboose pistol today. And I do have two very good pieces that I think you're going to enjoy. So let's do it. Time for the sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol.
John Lund Unleashed presents the caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say caboose?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this, you weirdo. Here's John.
All right, just double checking to make sure we don't have any trade deadline stuff. Brock Stewart, right-handed pitcher of the Twins, going to the Dodgers, of course. The Dodgers always make trades at the deadline. There'll probably be some hammer closer. Let's see what else. Sorry, I know this is not related. There's my good friend who blocked me, John Heyman, saying, will Stephen Kwan be traded before the deadline today? Well, that's what we're all asking. Give us more information than that. Tell us if he is or isn't. Don't ask me the question. We could do that by ourselves. All right, we'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on. All right, first and foremost, and I know how this can happen, and I'll explain to you why, but here's the first thing that we'll talk about in this weekly family-friendly caboose pistol. The canned cocktail maker High Noon is warning customers that some of its vodka seltzers were accidentally labeled as Celsius energy drinks. So could you imagine going to the gym and like, oh, man, I got to have something, and then you pop one of those Celsius, which Nick Bosa pumps those and is an endorser for Celsius. And by the way, if you'd notice on my, you can't really see my desk here, but I was big into that Celsius cherry cola, and I'm going cold turkey, just water. Let me see if I can get just water. That's all I'm doing. I'm doing water now, and I'm not doing I'm done with energy drinks. I'm done with Celsius, any of that kind of thing. But now kids are probably scrambling for Celsius and trying to suck them down like it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, looking for the golden ticket. But I can see how this happened because, so my dad, I told you this before, they called him Fryman, and he, later in his life, he moved up to Idaho for a while, had a place there, and because he was Fryman, he was a distributor for French fries and different kind of products like mozzarella sticks and all different kind of things. So he would go up to a plant, and that certain day they'd be doing French fries into boxes for him, and he would distribute them all over the country. And it was like, okay, it's French fry day. Then that same plant might do mozzarella sticks the next day. And the next day it would do this or that or whatever. So not to bore you, but what can happen sometimes is, okay, maybe they'll be like, okay, today we're doing Celsius. Next day we're doing High Noon. And, so these plants will do different types of, packaging and cans or whatever the case may be. So they were probably like somebody forgot to switch it over. And therefore the Celsius cans are running and then High Noons were going into it. So anyway, I don't know how, I guess they'll find them because there's numbers based on, that day's packing or whatever. And they'll find the ones that were accidentally put in there that say Celsius and they're actually a High Noon. So anyway, there you go. Kids will be buying a bunch of Celsius and then they'll be trying to find which ones are the Celsius that are actually High Noons, which I don't know what you think, but I think they're atrocious. The High Noons, or any of those White Claws, High Noons, whatever. Not a fan, but to each their own. I'm not going to, like I said, you do you. But I'm not I'm off of Celsius and I do not drink High Noons. That's just me. You could like them. And I wouldn't judge you 1 minute. We could still be friends. Everything would be fine. I'm just saying that's not for me. So there's number one on the list today. So watch your Celsius. Just be careful because you could be, you're driving down the road or something and you think you're drinking a Celsius and then the cops pull you over and you're hammered. So there you go. So there's that one. Second one today is, I'm pretty excited about this. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I'm a huge fan of. The first edition, of course, had Brad Pitt and Leo, and I thought it was great. And then I thought Quentin Tarantino was done, but apparently he's not. And they're doing the Adventures of Cliff Booth, and I've become, as he's gotten older, a big Brad Pitt fan. And the last scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where the Manson people came up, and then he was on acid. Remember, he smoked that joint that was laced with acid. And his dog got after that guy and everything like that. And then the one girl went into the pool, and then Leo went and got that blowtorch and blew her away and everything like that. That was a great last scene. That was a great last scene in that movie. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm going to be in line for that. And I'm not a big movie guy. Like everything comes out, it's gonna get to Netflix or somewhere sooner or later. So I'm like, whatever. You know, I'm not a big movie guy. My wife loves movies. And so she's like, oh, this came out. It's like, I would go see that in a movie theater. Very rare that I would go to a movie theater, but absolutely. So anyway, pretty stoked about that. So there's that. And then let's use this one as the grand finale today. I don't know if you saw this. This was actually during a Golden State Valkyries game. So you might know where I'm going here. But anyway, an object on the court. Watch closely. First of all, see the woman behind the coach laughing with her hand over her mouth because she's just cracking up. Plus, somebody had to know, like, okay, it's going to be a black court tonight. I'm going to get a neon dildo, green neon dildo, and I'm going to throw that thing across the court. And it's going to like, you know, like if you're playing, what is that? God, what's the thing where you go into like a thing and it's, you're shooting at each other, not paintball. It's either like laser tag or something like that, you know, like laser tag, and they have, it's all neon in there. And then, you know, you're wearing orange or something like that. And so somebody knew, like, they're like, it's going to be a black court. I'm going to bring this green dildo. I'm going to throw it on the court. It's going to fly across there. And the funniest thing is the announcers. I mean, it's funny that somebody threw it on there, but it's the announcers. Like the announcer, like, and then at the end, she's like, oh, that's just disgusting. And the one is laughing and the official's laughing. Here's a short version.
No room.
She Anyway, I think I have a clip. There you go. Right there. There she is. How do you get that in? Don't they like, I guess that's not going to set an alarm off or anything like that. I mean, so anyway, I don't know if it's used. Anyway, she picked it up with like, they had like 18, you know, towels or something, and she picked it up. The police officer like walked it across. And then of course the one announcer's just, you know, oh, there's just no room for that. But anyway, I mean, whoever threw it, they just knew it was up that night. They're like, it's going to be a black court. It's going to be this green thing. It's going to go flying. They're going to see it. They're going to stop play. It's going to be hilarious. And so now, as an aside to this whole thing, I can't believe they do this, but I think it was Bovada, one of the gambling sites. They actually did I don't know that you can bet on it. Again, might be just one of those things, kind of like when it's like, you know, who will this player sign with or whatever, but you really can't bet on it. They actually did what color would the next one be that was thrown on the court, like red, yellow, blue, whatever. So this might start like a thing. And, you know, and I thought they only did that in Buffalo. Remember they did that in Buffalo the one year? I think it was against the Patriots, and one came flying on the field near the goal line. And the official was like, I'm not touching it. Like, somebody's got to get down. Like, a hazard team in a hazmat suit has to get down there because I'm not touching that thing. So anyway, it was outstanding. Yeah, I guess you do. I guess you just, yeah, that's probably it. You just put it in your pants, I guess. Something like that. Because, yeah, it's not going to set off a metal detector or anything like that. But anyway, I mean, I thought it was kind of hilarious because that's somebody who's smart. Like if it was on like a regular basketball court, I mean, you could see it, but not like that. I mean, because that court was like, I guess it was black, it was super dark. And all of a sudden this green, you know, neon green, lime green thing comes flying and bouncing across it. You're like, right away, you're like, what is that? Anyway, there you go. That might become a thing. We'll see. But usually that's what happens. Is like it happens once. And then the announcers kind of react like they did. Like, just act like it's nothing. Like, relax. Act like you've been there. Like, whatever. Somebody threw something. Because she's like, oh, my gosh, that is just so uncalled for. It's like, it's just somebody having a little fun. Relax. Yeesh. It's getting all mad. Like, what's that going to hurt? I'm not going to respond to this comment. I'm not going to respond to that comment, whatever. I'm not at all. I'm not going to respond to that comment. This is a professional show, man. This is a professional show. We're not responding to things like that. Anyway, anything else we need to do today on a Thursday? Caboose Pistol. That's right. It is our favorite time of the show. All right. I think that'll do it today. And again, episode 208, Webb solid, not enough. Rogers to the Mets. They did get an A for their return. We shall see. Who else is going to go today? I hope Robbie Ray, even though I like Robbie Ray, I think he'd sign pitching in the offseason. Duvall, depending on the return. A lot of people, you know, Ryan Walker, I think, could be a guy. So anyway, we'll keep an eye out for everything. The Yaz catch might have been the best of the day. By the way, 3 p.m. is the deadline today, Pacific. Miller to the Padres. I think the A's did a great job in getting the third best prospect in baseball, but he's only 18. But you can get closers, and the A's really don't need one because they're so bad. Young wide receivers, you heard from 𝐾𝐨. 49ers signed a wide receiver and a running back vet. Talent under 30. I wouldn't necessarily go with the ESPN list. It's just unproven. The 24 class has to step up. The 25 class has to be good very fast. Trey Lance starts tonight for the Chargers against the Lions in the Hall of Fame game. Good luck to him. and the sweet, clean, family-friendly, and was extra family-friendly today, Caboose Pistol. Thanks to Daniel and Tommy with supers today. Appreciate you contributing to the show. Anything else today? Did I miss any trades today? All right, I'll keep you up to date on trades. Anything happens, please keep those alerts on. If you're on X, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, any of those places, saunter on over to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and make sure that you're subscribed. Hit us with the like before you get out of here, please. And if you would be so kind as to keep those alerts on so that you'll know when news breaks. Everybody have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow. Great guest. I'll send out, by the way, have those alerts on because I'm going to send out some teasers for tomorrow's guest, which is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see you then. John Lund Unleashed. Have a great Thursday.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!